Hi folks, this is Karim Rao from Audio Visualizer channel. Today we'll continue our lab, the Mass Effect lab. This is the 7th video. In the previous video I've been discussing the following. We have been, from a couple of videos before, we have been preparing a virtual machine and we have installed Windows Server 2019 on it. And we have joined this server to the domain. And this server will be our MBAM, or what is called Microsoft BitLocker administration and monitoring tool. On this server we will install the MBAM software, and through this MBAM we will control the process of the BitLocker for all of the machines in our domain. So we have, for example, 30 or 50 PCs. We need to have all of their hard disks encrypted. And we need to have certain reports. We will control this process through this server that have the MBAM software installed on it, but we need to have reports about this process, how much PCs their hard disk are encrypted, the name of the PCs, the different recovery keys. We need the BitLocker recovery keys to be saved, okay, and to be submitted or to be displayed as a report, okay. So this is all will be done through the MBAM, because the MBAM is not only a software that will administer or will control the process of the BitLocker on all of the PCs, but it will create reports concerning this process. It will store all of the encryption keys or the BitLocker recovery keys on the software itself. I will show you all a little bit of a graph, but we need to know that MBAM, it's not only a program to implement the BitLocker on all of our machines, but it's also a monitoring tool for the BitLocker and its BitLocker process, and it is also a reporting tool for the BitLocker process, okay. So what is the BitLocker, or how does it works? We will have a little bit of a graph. I have discussed it before in the previous video, but I'll discuss it now. Here we can see that, just a moment, here we can see that the MBAM software, it will be installed on the server. So we'll have our server, for example, and we install the MBAM software on it. The MBAM software uses a web-based portal or a web-based page, so you can access the software of MBAM. So we will install the MBAM software and we will use a web server, or we'll use a web interface to access the setting and the configuration of the MBAM. So this is the MBAM URL, and we have two pages, or we have two type of pages to access the MBAM. One is called administrative portal and the other is called help desk portal. I'll discuss this one by one. So first we will install the software, and then we will have or we need to install or configure a web server and to configure a web page, so, and link this web page to the MBAM software. This we will do it in our lab. This software, or the MBAM software, said before, records all of its activity. For example, how much PCs have the program encrypted, how much recovery keys it has recorded. So in short, all of the MBAM process for all of our PCs and the recovery keys for all our PCs and the name of all our PCs, all of this are recorded by the software of MBAM on a SQL database, okay. So we have a SQL database. This SQL database, it is linked to the software of the MBAM, okay, software of the MBAM, which is accessed through a web page. So we will have the MBAM software, the web page that it is linked to the MBAM software, and the access database, or the or the SQL database that it is linked to the MBAM software. And through this SQL database we will run, or we will display a couple of reports that we need to monitor the process of the BitLocker. So through this reports, which are SQL reports, this is an option that we will install when we install the SQL database. We will install something called SQL reporting. From this SQL database we will run reports, or SQL reports, that will get us how much PCs the BitLocker have installed, or the MBAM has installed in the domain or in our network. For example, the BitLocker or the MBAM have decrypted or encrypted, sorry, for example 10 PCs or 20 PCs or so and so, and this is a report. It will give us how much PCs are encrypted, the name of the PCs, the recovery keys. Okay, all of this can be displayed through SQL reports. Okay, so we have the program, we have the web page or the web server or the web portal that it is linked to the software, and we have a database that is linked to the software, so the software can put all of its activities and recovery keys and encryption keys. All of this are stored in a SQL database linked to the program, and in the end we can run reports to get a lot of information concerning our BitLocker process. Okay, so we have the web, we have the database, we have the reports. Okay, to control all of the and we have the software, of course. So we have 4 parts: the program, the web, the database, the reports. So to control all of the 4, we need to create certain Active Directory users and groups to control the whole process of the BitLocker, which consists of the program of the MBAM and the web page of the MBAM and the SQL database of MBAM and the reports of the SQL database. So we have 3 users. We will create 3 Active Directory users. First of all, MBAM, it's, as I said before, abbreviation of Microsoft BitLocker and Administrator, or Administration and Monitoring Tool. So this is the abbreviation. RO, it's abbreviation of Read Only. SVC, it's abbreviation of Service. So this is a Read Only Service account. I will discuss what we will do with it, and we will create another which is called MBAM Read and Write Service account, and then we will have another account called MBAM IIS AP SVC service account. So this account, we will use this account to control which users will have only read access to the software. For example, this user, we will use it to access only or to read only from the database. For example, this is only a read only service account. For example, if we need a certain user to read something from the database, so we need this user first to be put in an Active Directory user group. We will, for example, if we need certain users to see certain groups, certain reports, so we will create an Active Directory group, okay, and name it MBAM report users. We'll put the user in it, okay, and then this user, okay, will be responsible for enabling the user in the MBAM reports group to read the reports. Okay, so it will access the report as the user, or it will be on behalf of the user. So for example, if we need a certain user to access a certain report in the SQL database, you need first to put him in the MBAM reports group or Active Directory group, and then we will enable this read only service account to read the data of the SQL report from the SQL database. Okay, so this is a read only service account, and then we will use the other 2 service accounts to control who can access the web page of the MBAM software. So this will access who will, or these 2 are the 2 users are responsible for which will have access to the MBAM administrator or administration portal, okay, or administration web page. Okay, so these are the 2, and this in specific, it will be responsible for the web server or the web site for the MBAM as a whole. Okay, so the MBAM software, we will create a website for it, or okay, and this website, there is a page in it that we can access the MBAM software setting and configuration through it. So these 2 are responsible for the web portal of the MBAM and the web configuration of, or the website of the MBAM, and this in specific have more rights to control the website and the web URL for the MBAM software. Okay, so these 3 users will control the accessing of the users to the MBAM software, okay, and the MBAM portal. Okay, and these 2 Active Directory groups, we will control through them who can access the database. So for example, we have an MBAM read only group, so if any user is in this group, he will only have read access to the SQL database. Okay, And we have another one called MBAM database read and write. So if we put a user in this group, this user will be able to read from the database and change the database. Okay, so we control the access to database through these two Active Directory groups, and we control the access to the reports through this Active Directory user group, and we control the software of who will access the MBAM software and access the MBAM website and the MBAM portal pages through these three users. Okay, so this is in brief what the users what will do and what is the MBAM software consists of. It consists a lot of parts. There is a web part, there is a SQL database part, and there is SQL reports, and there is the software itself. As I said before, we have two type of URLs, one for the administration portal. Through this the administrator can go and set up some configuration for the MBAM and so on and so on. Then we have the help desk portal. Okay, you can delegate some of your ITs, okay, to access the MBAM to do certain tasks. For example, you need a help desk, for example, to see a report, okay, concerning the MBAM process. So you can give it, we will have two help desk groups. One will called MBAM help desk users and others called advanced help desk user. Okay, so for example, I need the help desk, okay, to for example, if a user, for example, that has his BitLocker key, he didn't remember it, so I need one of the help desk to get or to access the SQL database of the MBAM and get the key for the user and give it to the user. So this we will give it to the MBAM help desk users. Okay, so this is one. And then we have another thing called MBAM advanced help desk. For example, if the user forget or the user completely the key or the recovery key we were not able to recover it, for example, or we cannot know the recovery key for the BitLocker, and the user cannot remember it, and we cannot get it from the SQL database, for example. Okay, so then we can give a group called advanced help desk. This user or this user in this group can create another BitLocker key and give it to the user. Okay, so by the way, there are big BitLocker keys. This is keys that are given to the user so he can decrypt and encrypt his data. Okay, so we'll have two help desk groups that will control who will access the help desk portal and what they will do exactly. For example, this group will only have some read rights to the reports. For example, if you need some or one user need to get his recovery key, for example, or he doesn't remember it, so this help desk or this user in this help desk Active Directory group can read the key for him and give it to him. And there is an advanced help desk that if the key is completely lost and we cannot get it, he will initiate or we will create another recovery key and give it to the user. Okay, so this is the help desk portal, and we have the same groups who control or who access the SQL database and who access the reports. Okay, so we'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we'll have 6, 7, 8. So we will have 8 Active Directory objects. Some are groups and some are users. And what is the main function of creating users and groups for the MBAM? To control the whole process, or to control the whole process of the BitLocker program. Who will access the software, who will access the database, link it to the software, who will see reports concerning this software. So we can read it here. We can see that this is a small brief about the users. This is called read only service account, and this is read and write service account. This is IIS application pool service account. This is the one responsible for the website or running the website of the MBAM. And then we will have help desk users. Members of this group are granted read-only access to the help desk portal, so they can only access the portal and read only from it. And as for the advanced users or advanced help desk, members of this group are provided help desk access without the need to specify user and computer details for recovery. I said before, he can recover a key for a certain user. So the normal help desk can only read reports, for example, from the MBAM database, but the advanced help desk can initialize or can recreate or can get the recovery key or the BitLocker recovery key for the user. And then we have the MBAM database read only. This is security group for adding read only database members. So this only group is created for users to read only from the database. And then we have something called LBAM, the read and write. So these users in this group can read from the database and change the database or do maintenance plans, change the tables in the database, and so on and so on. And at the end we have the members of this group will have access to the MBAM reports. Okay, so this is in general what is the structure of the MBAM, how it will work. It will work combining a couple of concepts: the web server concept, the database SQL concept, and the SQL database reports. So this is in general what is the MBAM. What is in details what we will do or what we have done in the previous video. Okay, in the previous video, before installing the software of the MBAM and beginning the whole process, okay, and I have discussed in the previous graph, we need first to install a couple of programs. So before installing the MBAM software and begin working with it, we need to install something called prerequisites, or install a couple of programs before installing the MBAM software. First of all, we need to know that the MBAM, it is a software that it is in a DVD. Okay, this DVD, it is called Microsoft Desktop Optimization Package. So the MBAM software, it is in a DVD. This DVD, it is called Microsoft Desktop Optimization Package. You can download this DVD from the website of Microsoft, but you need to have a license or enterprise volume license, so you can download this DVD. It's called MDOP, Microsoft Desktop Optimization Package 2017. This is working until now, so it's not, don't bother yourself with the year, it's still used until now. And if you need to apply a certain BitLocker encryption type, for example, we have something called AES XTCS ciphers. If you need to use this, okay, you need to work with SQL 2017, so you need to install the MBAM software, and you need to install SQL 2017 database, and you need to install an update for the MBAM. So you need to set up the MBAM software and set up the SQL database that the MBAM software will use it, and then update the MBAM software through something called July 2017 service update. Okay, so what we will do, the first step that we'll do, we will only download the DVD of the Microsoft Desktop Optimization Package. We'll download it, and then we will keep it aside, and then we will go to our Active Directory and create an organizational unit which is called MBAM, and then we will create the users and groups that we have discussed in the previous graph. This is called Active Directory preparation. So we'll first download the DVD, and then we will prepare our Active Directory, and then after that what we will do, we will have two users, which is the read-only service account and the IIS service account. We will put these two Active Directory users in a local group on the MBAM server. As I said before, we have a server that we have installed Windows Server 2019 on it and joined it to domain, so it's a member server. We will go to this member server and go to the local group which is called IIS users and put the read-only service account and the IIS service account in this local group. Okay, so this is the second step. Okay, here you go, this is the second step. So we will download the Microsoft Desktop Optimization package DVD, and we keep it aside, and then we will create our Active Directory users and groups concerning the MBAM, and then we will take two users from that we have created for the MBAM, or the two users of MBAM service accounts, and we put it on the MBAM local group which is called IIS users. Okay, so by doing this we are enabling these two users to control and open the website or the web URL for the MBAM. Without using this step, we will not be able to open the website or the web URL that it is linked to the MBAM software. Through this web URL we can control or we can access the MBAM software. So without using this step, putting these two users in this local group on the MBAM server, we will not be able to open the MBAM website or the MBAM URL or the portals, the administration portal or the help desk portal. Okay, so this is the second step to do. And then what we will do, we need these two users. Okay, so we need to have the MBAM read only service account and the MBAM IIS service account to have an option activate on both of them, okay, which is called login as batch job. Okay, if what is this login as batch job? This is an option that is given to these users or to this users, okay, these two users, to do some tasks to the website, okay, or to do some some maintenance task to the website and to the database. Okay, without giving these two users the login as batch job option, we will not be able to complete the process of the MBAM software installation. Okay, so what it is, or first of all, how we can give these two users the option of login as batch, and we need also to give the user of MBAM service account something called a personate a client after authentication properties. So we need to give this user this option, and we need to give these two users, okay, this option. What is the login as batch applies, or what is the login as batch says? This policy determines which accounts can log on by using a batch queue tool such as task scheduler. Okay, when you use it, when we use the add schedule task wizard to schedule a task to run under a particular username and password, that user is automatically assigned the login as batch user right. So what's here we are applying here, he's saying that these two users, we need to have some rights, or it will create some tasks or some scheduled tasks, okay, to run it on the web server and the database of the MBAM software. So to do this, okay, to enable them to do this, we need to give them the option of login as batch job. For example, maybe these two users will do some maintenance jobs, or do some maintenance jobs to the website and to the database. For example, this user or these two users will do some cleaning for the MBAM database, or they need to make some maintenance or cleaning to the website or the URL of the MBAM. So we need to give them this, because this is said in the documentation of Microsoft. So this is what we this is the option of login as batch. The other thing, impersonate a client after authentication. This policy determines which programs are allowed to impersonate a user or another specified account and act on his behalf. For example, when you need some user to access the website of or the URL of the MBAM or the administrator portal or the help desk portal of the MBAM, actually the user itself, we will use our Active Directory user account to access the help desk portal or the administrator portal, but actually not our users, the one that will be accessing the website. We are giving the user of ISP service account the control to act on our behalf. For example, if my user Askarim wants to access the administrative portal of the MBAM, I will click my username and password, and then actually I will go to the user of the ISP service account, and he is the one that will access the website for me. So he's acting on my behalf. Okay, so this is what we call impersonate a client after authentication, because my username and or Active Directory user account does not have rights to access the website of the MBAM. Okay, and we not need to put all of our users in the group of or the group that will be responsible for managing the website of the MBAM. For example, I have said before that there is a group that's called IIS users. When you put any user in this group, we will be able to control the whole website of the MBAM. So why we why we put the MBAM IIS service account in this group on the MBAM local group, and we put also the MBAM read-only service account. So this is why we have put them in it. We don't need to put all of our users in this group so they can access the MBAM website, because this is very critical. If I put them in this group, they will have full control on the website. I need them only to access the website, not to have full control over the web page or the web portal or the website of the MBAM. So what this is solved by making the service account of the ISP to be the one responsible for logging all of my users. He is acting on my behalf. So my account, for example, is Kareem. I want to access the website of the MBAM or the portal of the MBAM. I will put my username and password, and then after that this will be given to the ISP service account. He will log in with his username on my behalf. Okay, so this is why we have these two options put for these users, and how we can control it, or how we can activate this option from the default domain policy. We'll go to something called a personate a client after authentication, and then we will add our ISP service account, and then we'll go to login as batch. Okay, and then we will add our two users. Okay, so again we will revise. What we will do, we will download the Microsoft desktop optimization package DVD that contains the MBAM software, and we will leave it apart, and then we will create our different MBAM users, Active Directory users and group, and then we will take two users, which is the read-only service account of MBAM and IIS service account of MBAM, and put it in a local group. Okay, on our MBAM server. This local group, it's called IIS_users. By putting these two users in it, we are giving them the control, or do we give them the right to manage the website and the portal for the MBAM. And after that, we need to give these two users certain rights. For example, said before, we need to give them login as batch, and I have discussed it, and we will give the IIS account the impersonate a client after authentication. I have discussed why we need these two options. Okay, and it is suggested, okay, if we have an MBAM software or an MBAM, or to run the MBAM, we need to have a domain service account that will access both SQL database and ISP or IIS website. So these two these two users will be responsible for accessing the SQL database and the website of the MBAM. So this is the third step, and then after that we need to have a name for our website. So now we have done all of things. We need to give, or we need to have, or the user, or we need to give the user a URL that he can type it, or the help desk can type it, so he can access the MBAM website. This will be done through something called service principal name. Okay, so we run a command. Through this command, what we will do, we will tell him, for example, that we need this website to be named according to the name of the server plus the domain name. So this is my the name of my MBAM server. It's called edmf02, and this is the domain meu.local. So if anyone type this URL, he will be able to access the MBAM software. Okay, and we give this username or the IIS service account. He was the one who will be responsible for managing this website. Okay, so this is the first type of naming. We name it according to the server name plus the domain name, or we can name it only according to the server. Okay, and then as I said before, we will give the MBAM service account. He will be the one responsible for running this website. Okay, so this is the fourth step. Okay, and then what we will do, we have our users created, or Active Directory users created, our rights and permissions is created, our options are added, and our website name, it is created. We need to create the website server or the website itself. So we have the website name, but we didn't create the website server itself, or the website container. Okay, or the website containers, as I said before. So we need to go to the manage, and then, or the server manager, and add the web server role, and then we need also to add the net frame 3.5. Okay, and after doing this, we need to run a couple of commands. Okay, to complete or to add additional features to the web server role. Okay, so we added the web server role, we added the net frame, and then we run a couple of commands to add additional features to the web server. Okay, this is the fourth or fifth step. Okay, and what we will do after that, we need to install something called ASP.NET. Okay, this we need to install it. Okay, so until this step we can revise what we have done. We have our Microsoft desktop optimization package DVD downloaded. This one contains the MBAM software. We will leave it aside, and then we create our different MBAM users and Active Directory groups, and then we take two users created for the MBAM, one for the read-only service account and the one for the IIS server account, and put them in a local group on our MBAM server. This local group is called IIS users. By putting these two users in it, this will enable them or enable these two users to manage the website of the MBAM software. Okay, and then after that we need to give these two users a couple of options so they can be able to manage the website of the MBAM and to manage the database of the MBAM. These two options are called login as batch, okay, and the other one is called impersonate a client after authentication. And then after that we need to give our MBAM website a name through the something called service principal name, and then after that we need to install or to create our MBAM website, okay, and through installing the web server role and NetFrame 3.5, and then installing a couple of features additional to the web server role. So the web server role, it is installed through the server manager, but it have some missing features. We will complete it by this PowerShell script, and then we install the NetFrame. And after installing the web server role and the NetFrame and installing the missing components of the web server, we now go and install ASP.NET. And at the end what we will do, we will install SQL 2016 database, okay, and we need to have a certain option when we install the SQL 2016 database, something called in the collision, something called SQL Latin General CP1 C1AS. Okay, so we will install the database, we will install the database through a certain option, and we will install the reporting SQL service so we can run reports from the SQL database. And this is the what we have discussed until the previous video. In this video we need to complete so on this video we will complete the process. We need to install something called Microsoft SQL Management Studio. Through this software we can access our MBAM database and do changes in it. Okay, this is not installed with the SQL database DVD, okay, or Microsoft SQL database DVD. So we need to install it we can download it from the internet and install it. Okay, and this is the last step we need to do before beginning the install of the MBAM software. All of we have done until this screenshot, this is called installing MBAM prerequisites, or installing the softwares that without it the MBAM software itself will not be running. So now we need to, or in this video we will discuss the installing of the MBAM software itself. Okay, we can have a small or a little graph. Okay, in this lab what we will do, in this lab we will install the MBAM software, and by installing the MBAM software it will do a couple of changes. As I said before, the MBAM consists of a couple of parts. A part concerning the web, this is how we can access the software of the MBAM, and the database, this the MBAM software will use it, and the reports, that's also the MBAM software will use it to create reports or to get reports from the SQL database. So what we will do, we will install the MBAM software, okay, and the MBAM software, once we have created it, once we have installed it, it will create a couple of databases in our SQL database. First one, it will called compliance and audit database. This is the first database that will be created after installing the MBAM software. So we install the MBAM software, and then after installing the MBAM software, it will create 4 databases. One of them is called compliance and audit report and audit database. Compliance and audit database stores the BitLocker compliance data collected from computers that MBAM manages. For example, how much PCs are encrypted, how much partitions are encrypted, the name of the partitions, and the name of the PCs. So this is all will be recorded in a database called compliance and audit database. And then we will have another database called recovery database. The recovery database stores BitLocker recovery keys. So this is the encryption keys are installed or are created in this database. Your BitLocker recovery key, it's a unique 48 digital numerical password that can be used to unlock your system. If BitLocker is otherwise unable to confirm for certain that the attempt to access the system drive is authorized. So you can use this to unlock your encryption on your or to unlock the protection on your drive, the encryption and the protection. Okay, so the key may be stored in your Microsoft account, printed or saved to a file. So we can give the recovery key to the user on a paper, or can be put on his Microsoft user account, but through the MBAM software it will be recorded in a database. Okay, so within our organization is managing the device. The requirement for recovery key in the cases is a critical component of the protection of the BitLocker. So this is a brief about the BitLocker. This is a key that we use it to encrypt the data of the user. This is very critical. This key can be delivered to the user on a paper, or it can be stored on a Microsoft account. In our case it will be stored on a recovery database. Okay, and then we will have a fourth or a third database. This database is called SQL Server database. It's a SQL Server database that stores the following contents: items managed by the report server. So this database, in short, it will save all of our reports that we will run to get, for example, if I need to run a report to get something from the SQL compliance and audit database, the result of this report will be stored in this database. Okay, so this is in brief what we ask, or what we need from this database. This will store our reports. Okay, so we'll run reports that will get data from other databases, and the result of this reports or the data of this reports will be stored on the report server database. Okay, he can say here that it managed item managed by report server, subscription, schedule definition, report snapshots, system reports, reports execution login data, and so on. And this is and there is a temp database for this report. This is a temp database for the report database. What it means: each report server database uses a related temporary database to store sessions and execution data, cache reports, and work tables. So this is a cache for the database of the reports. So when you run reports, okay, for example, to get a data from another database, this is cached on a temporary database. Okay, so this is the main function of this database. So we will install the MBAM software. This MBAM software will create 4 databases as we have named it, and everyone will have a certain function, and we control who access this database through the use of these 2 Active Directory groups: MBAM read only database and MBAM read and write database. Okay, so we can have a little bit of a graph. After installing the MBAM software, we will open it and begin configuring the database. We will give him the name of the SQL server, which in case it is the name of our MBAM server, it's edmf.mu.local, and then this is the name of the database. It's compliance and audit database, and we will give these 2 groups the MBAM database read and write. It will have write access to the database, and the MBAM database read only will have read to the database of the compliance database. So through the MBAM software, after installing it, we will open it and begin configuring that these 2 groups, okay, will have access to the compliance database audit database. This will have read and this will have write. Okay, so this is done through the MBAM software. So after we install the MBAM software, we will configure it in a portion of it called configure database. We will give it the server name of our, or the SQL server name, and then the database name that we need to create, because he is the one, this software will be the one responsible for creating this database, and we will define who have the read and write access to this database. So this is done through the MBAM. We will discuss it in this video, okay? And then in another part of the MBAM, what we will do, we will tell him, okay, that we need the SQL reports, or we need certain groups to access the report servers or the report database to get SQL reports, okay? We need only the MBAM reports group to access the report database to get reports, okay? So this will run through here also, okay? And we will have this user, our read-only service account. This one, he is the one responsible to read from these two databases. So it's not only enough to put users in this group, okay, so they can access SQL reports. We need to tell also the MBAM software that these users, they will not directly read from the database. They will read the reports through using this user. He will act on their behalf. So this user needs to run a report. He's Karim, for example, so I put him in this group, and then he needs to run a certain report. We will go to the user of the MBAM read-only service. He is the one who will be responsible for running the report, getting the data, and then retrieve it to him again. So this also will be done through configuring reports in the MBAM. Also, this is a part of the MBAM setup. We will tell him the SQL server name and the name of the report database, or the reporting database, or a report database. It's called report server, okay? And we will decide who can access this database. So these two databases will be accessed by the MBAM reports, okay? And then they have only read only, or we have the right of read to these databases, not directly but through the user of service, or the MBAM or RO service account. So we will give him the name of the SQL server, the group that will be responsible for accessing the reports, okay? And we will give a certain user the right, okay, to access this database, which is the RO service. So he is the one who will be responsible to read from these databases, okay? Even though I have put users in this group, but this is they will not the one that will be responsible, or the one that will access the database. This user will be the one responsible for doing this, okay? So this, by configuring the reports and giving that to the compliance or the read-only service account, this we will do this in this lab, we'll do this in this lab. So in this lab we will do these two types, or these two parts, and in the upcoming video we will begin discussing the portal side or the website side. So here we will discuss the database part of the MBAM, how we configure it, and to give it the different Active Directory groups different rights on this database, and the reports, and also giving different Active Directory groups and users certain rights on it, okay? So this what we will discuss in this video. So let's go and begin the process. First of all, we need to install the Microsoft Management Studio tool so we can access the database of the SQL. Let's first go to the MBAM lab, and then we go to the number 6, and then we'll begin to opening the this it. So here first of all I have installed the Classic Shell and the 7-zip. Classic Shell, it is a program to change the start menu of the Windows 10 to be like the Windows 7, and the installed 7-zip, this is a program to compress and decompress zipped files, okay? To compress files and to decompress zipped files, okay? So now what we will do, we will install the SQL Management Studio. This will enable us to access the SQL database, and this is not installed with the SQL database itself, or the SQL 2016 database. So here we will install the SQL Management Studio. Just a moment. So let's continue. We will here now begin installing the the SQL Management Studio. So after installing the SQL Management Studio, we will finish the section concerning the prerequisites of installing the MBAM. So we need to install a couple of programs. This we have discussed in the previous video, and the last step in these programs, or the last program that we will install to complete or to finish the MBAM prerequisites section, is the SQL Management Studio, and then we'll begin installing the MBAM software itself. I also have a graph to simplify or to show you the process of installing the MBAM, and we will use it to configure the different database that we have discussed in the previous graphs, the 4 databases that we have been discussing it. So now we install the SQL database. Sorry, we installed the SQL Management Studio. So I think we can run it more quickly. Here we can go, then we will run the program. Okay, this is the, just a moment. So this is the software, and then we run and install it. Okay, just so what we have done here, we have already just tell him to install the software. This is done already, and then what we will do, we will go, and I don't need all of this. So here I have installed the SQL or the Management Studio. Okay, and then we have taken 2 checkpoints. Okay, or we have backup, or I have backed up the 2 virtual machines. This is the domain controller, and this is the MBAM server. I have taken 2 checkpoints before installing the software on the MBAM, or the real software, or we install the MBAM software. So we have installed the SQL Management Studio, and by that we have finished the section of the MBAM prerequisites, or we have installed all of the prerequisites programs for the MBAM to work properly. Then we will take a checkpoint, or we'll take a backup of the domain controller and the MBAM server through using the checkpoint option, okay, and the Hyper-V. Okay, so this is, we have done it. This will be done. Okay, don't need all of this. Okay, so after this we will begin the upcoming video, we will begin installing the MBAM software. But before installing the MBAM software, I need to show you all a small graph, or a small a video, just a small graph that will discuss the installation of the MBAM software. So just a moment, I need to go a little bit further. Okay, so here what we will do, we will insert the Microsoft Desktop Optimization Package DVD, and then we can see here, this is the MBAM folder. We will open it, and then we will see something called installers. Okay, and through the installers we will have something called 64-bit. This is my system, it's Windows Server 2019 64-bit system. We will open it, and then we can see that we will have a folder called MBAM 2.5 Service Pack 1. We will use this, or we will open it, and then from it we will see something called MBAM client and MBAM server. Okay, so we will double click on the MBAM server setup, and then we will have this welcome screen appearing for us. We will tell him next. Okay, and then accept the license agreement, and then we will tell him to install the MBAM server. Okay, the MBAM server software. So this is what we have done. This is the first step, and then we, at the end, we will see something called finish. So we have finished running the MBAM, or we have finished installing the MBAM server software, and we click finish. After that, we need to install the service pack, or we need to install an update for the MBAM 2.5, okay, which is called 2.5K, or this is an update for the MBAM server software. We need to run it, to run these two. Okay, so we will have the same when we run it, we will have the same license agreement, or we have this license agreement, and then we will tell him next. Okay, we'll have this welcome screen, tell him next. This is the update, so this is the MBAM update. We will run it. Okay, and then what we will see the installation screen, and then at the end we will have it finished, and we can tell him to run the MBAM wizard. So after finishing installing the MBAM server software and installing the update for the MBAM software, which is called 2.5 update KB so and so, we'll tell him to run the configuration wizard, or we can run it through this. We can open the start and run it from here. And then it will open for us this configuration wizard. We will tell him to add features through this option. Will begin creating the 4 databases that we have been discussing. So tell him add feature, and after that we will have this select add feature, or what feature we need to add. We need to add a compliance and audit database and a recovery database. This is the one that we have been talking about. This is the one. We will add these 2 databases. So we will add these 2, and then he will begin running something called prerequisite check, and then after that we tell him next. Here we will tell him the name of the SQL server, which is the server that our SQL database is installed on it. It is the same server that we have our MBAM software installed on it, and the same that we have our MBAM web server or URL installed on it. So we have our MBAM server, we have a SQL database installed on it, we have a web server installed on it, and we have the MBAM software itself, it is installed on it. So here we will tell him the server name, and then we will give our database a name. We will leave this to the default, and then we will tell him that we need these 2 groups. One group to have read and write access to the database, which called the group is called MBAM database read and write group, and then we need to have read only access to the database through this group. So what we will do here, we will give these 2 groups access. So we'll give the read only Active Directory group read access to this database or these 2 databases, and we will give this group which is read and write group read and write access to these 2 databases. So this is what we will do, and then after that we will tell him this is, by the way, this is for the first one. It is for the compliance and audit database. So we'll give the compliance and audit database 2 groups. Every group, one will have read to the compliance and audit database, and the one will have read and write to the compliance and audit database, and the one it is for the recovery database. So we have 2 databases. As I said before in this graph, these 2 groups will have this group will have read to the compliance and audit database, and this group will have read and write to the compliance and audit database, and this group will have read to the recovery database, and this group will have read and write to this database. So this is done through this graph, and after that we will finish. At the end we will have configuring it, and then you can export all what you have done to a PowerShell script. You can do this step or not, it is your choice, and then we'll tell him to finish. And then after that, if we access our SQL Management Studio, we can see that we have 2 databases are created: the MBAM compliance database and the MBAM recovery database. So we have 2 databases. We can check them from the SQL Management Studio. We'll see that they are created already. So this is the first step, and the second step, we need to, what we will do, we need to, as here in the graph, or as here we are implying, we need to create 2 databases for the reports, and give this group access to them, not directly but through this read only service account. We will see how this is done, but before doing this step, or before configuring the MBAM to create these 2 databases, we need to go to the database itself. Before that, we need to go to the open the SQL Management Studio and go to the MBAM compliance database, and then we need to give the read only service account read write on this database, because this user will be responsible for accessing this database and running reports on it. So we need to call this database and give the read only service account write on this database, or read role on it. this is before accessing or before going and configuring the report database. So we will do this. We will create, or we go to the database or the SQL Management Studio and go to the compliance audit database. So we can just give it on the graph. We need this user to have read write on this, to have read on this database. Okay, why we need this? Because the reports will use it to run reports and to access the database. So we need this user, okay, this user to have read on these databases and read on this database, okay, so he can get reports. Okay, so we will do this, okay, and after that we will begin configuring, or we will open again the features and click on the reports, and then we will have something called next. Okay, and then after that it will get us for the SQL database, or the SQL database we will give the MBAM reports users access to the reports database through this graph. So here we will have the MBAM users group to have access to the SQL database, okay, to get reports, but the read-only service account will access on their behalf. Okay, so here we will have the reporting group. It will be MBAM reports. We'll have our SQL server name, and the name of database will be given according to the wizard, and then we will specify a user, this user name and password, okay, that the compliance and audit reports will use to access the compliance and audit database. Okay, so this user, or this one, let's return back, this user will be responsible for getting reports, okay, or running reports. These reports, it will get its data from this database. So this user should have read access to these two databases and also read access to this database, so it can get reports. Okay, because the users here will not directly run the reports. This user will run the report for them and get the data from the specified database for them. So this user will run reports, or will have read access to these two databases and read access to this database. Okay, so here we will do this, and then we will put the read and write, okay, a service account, and then at the end we will close. This is finished. Okay, I think this is the last one. So this what we will do in this lab. We will do all of the steps that we have discussed. So let's go now and see how this will be done in a practical way. So let's open it, and here what we will do, just a moment. So here we will open, I have closed my domain controller. Access my domain controller. And then we will access my MBAM server. By the way, I have already installed the MBAM software. I will go directly to the configuration part. We need to open the MBAM software to begin configuring the databases, or the 4 databases. So we will see that now. And all of this is already, also if you need to see the steps, okay, this is also, if you need to see the steps, this is also, it is written, okay, in this website, so you can see all of the steps here. It is written in specific, okay, so all of what I have been discussing, all of this are here. Okay, so you can see the screenshots, okay, the one that I have been discussing. He will tell you what it is done, the location, and all of I have been discussing now, it is already there. So all of this, it is there, and he will tell you how to configure the databases, and all of this is discussed in this website, so you can return it back to it. So let's begin. think we can discuss it. Okay, here we can go a little bit further. So here, just a moment, I think okay, no, we don't need this. Okay, so here what we will do, guys, we will go here and just a moment. Here, start and go to the MBAM configuration. And here we tell him add features. Then we will click on the compliance and audit and recovery database, and then next. Then next, we need to give him the server name, which is our EDMF02. This is the SQL database server and the MBAM server and the MBAM software server and the MBAM web server. Okay, and then we will give read and write access to the compliance and audit database to the group of MBAM read, database read. Okay, this is, sorry, the read and write. Okay, and then for the, this is all for the compliance and audit database. Okay, and then we will go to the recovery database. So here we are specifying every database and which groups that have read to the database and which group that will have write to the database. And we have discussed what is a compliance and audit database and what is a recovery database. Okay, so you will give the read and write the same. Okay, read. Okay, for the read, and then okay, let me show you all a little bit of an error that will appear, but let me first show you all. If I tell him next, so now we have read and write. Okay, but this is only will give you read and write. You can have, when only the recovery database will only have read and write, there is no read for it. Okay, so here you can export what you have done in a PowerShell script, but here we will see something. Here we can see that that will be a problem. Okay, but I will show you all the problem. Here it is. Here we can see that it is failing. Okay, for some reason. I will show you all what is. So here we can go there again, so we can see all this one. Okay, so here it is failed. Why it is failed? I will show you all the problem here. Just a moment. I need to show you a problem. Okay, just the problem here. Just a moment. So again, just a moment here. No, again. No, again I can show you all this problem. No, again I need to show the problem here. Okay, so here, just a moment. Again, you can get a little bit closer. I'll show you the problem here. So why this error happened? Because, just a moment. Okay, so this error happened because, just a moment, I need to have it a little bit closer. Okay, okay, so here we have an error called 401. This 401, this error appears for you when you are doing the compliance and audit database configure and the recovery database configure through the MBAM software. Why this happens for you? Because you didn't install, or the problem here that you didn't install the update. Okay, so you didn't install here the update. So you need, after installing the MBAM server, we need to install the update. So I didn't install these two updates, so this error 401 appeared for me because I didn't install the software or the update for the MBAM server. Okay, so I need to install the MBAM server from the DVD of Microsoft Desktop and BitLocker Microsoft Desktop optimization package DVD, and then you need to install the update for the MBAM. Okay, so this is the problem here. Okay, so I have done, I have already installed the MBAM software, but I didn't install the update for I installed the MBAM server software, but I didn't install the update for the MBAM server software, this one. Okay, this is what happened for me. Okay, so here I have this error. So to do it, I need just to install, or what I have done, I have installed, here you can see, just a moment, again. So here I have installed this update, okay, to have this error not appearing for me, and install this one and this one. So I have these two installed for me. Okay, so here we can just pass it real quickly. Okay, and then what we will do the same process again after installing the server software, or after installing the MBAM update. What we can see here, that, just a moment, it is successful. Okay, so this is the first thing, you need to install the MBAM software update so you don't have this kind of error. So now it is already created, compliance and audit. So now we will begin running, or will begin configuring the report database. Okay, so now we will open again the MBAM. First of all, if you open the database server, or we open the SQL Management Studio, we can see that we have two databases created. Okay, so here we'll access the database. Of the MBAM, we can see here that it has created for us two databases. Okay, if you open the databases, okay, so here we can see that we have two databases created. Okay, this is already done, and we have two databases for the reports. We'll configure who can access these databases, okay, through the upcoming one. First of all, we need to, before going to create or to configure the report database, we need to create a user. We will see that now in a moment. Okay, so we need now to create, or to begin add features, and then we'll go to the reports. Okay, we can go a little bit further again just to see what is it. It says that MBAM reports show BitLocker compliance data for the enterprise and client computers, and show audit reports for the TPM and BitLocker recovery attempts. So it's not only a utility to get you the recovery keys of BitLocker, but how much recovery attempts are done for this recovery keys, and the TPM. Okay, this is also another method of BitLocker through using a chip. I will discuss it later. So it's mainly considering, or it is considered a tool or a report tool to monitor, to record what we have done in the BitLocker process. Okay, tell him next, and then we will choose which group that will be responsible for accessing or for running reports on the SQL, okay, database, and we will tell him which database exactly this group will run reports from it. So it will run reports from compliance and audit database. Okay, so it will run compliance and audit database. This group will be responsible for running reports from the compliance and audit database, and this is the name of the server that the compliance and audit database are residing, or it is on it, and this is the name of the compliance database. So basically the reports will run from the compliance and audit database, and the only one that will be responsible for running these reports, or the one who will be responsible for accessing the compliance and audit database and get the reports or get the data, it will be the read-only service. So what we will do now, or the read-only service account, what we will do, we'll go here and right click properties. I think we need to give on this database, we need to give our read-only access. Okay, so we'll have permissions here, and we need to have on the table or certain database, we need to give our read-only service account access on the compliance database, because this user will be responsible for getting reports. Okay, so we can get it a little bit further here. So we will have a new login, so we'll make a new login. Okay, and then we will choose, so here make right click new login, and then we will tell him that we need our read-only service account. So here what we will do, go and tell him to access or to have our read-only service account. This is the user that will be responsible for accessing the compliance and audit database and running reports and making reports from this database. Okay, so he will have this user, and we will give him write, just a moment. Also we give him mapping, you will give him read on the compliance database. Okay, so here we'll give him read role. Okay, so again here we give read only on this database. Okay, so again this user will be the one responsible for accessing the compliance audit database and getting reports, okay, for the users. Okay, so here we will do this, but here we will encounter a problem, because this, remember that I told you that this user and the IIS service account should have login as batch option, but I didn't give them this option. So this will be a problem, or this will not work, so I need to give them this option. Okay, so you need to be very careful, because if you didn't give this option and also the impersonate a client after authentication, this will not work. You will see now that at login as batch, next, so you will see that we will have a problem. Now we'll get a timeout, because this user doesn't have access, or doesn't have the option of login as batch. This is very critical, so this user can make some changes to the database, or made some tasks on the database. So we can see here that after a couple of minutes, we can see here, just a moment here, we can see that it will give us timeout. Just again, so here we can get a timeout. Okay, the operation timeout. So what we need to do, we need to go and give the user the policy, or the login as batch and the impersonate as a client. Okay, so just a moment, login as batch and impersonate as a client authentication, these two users we need to make it, or give it to user. And then what we will do, we will go again, I said before, we'll give him the read. Okay, the read, as I said before, and we will begin again the process after giving login as batch. So we will add the features again, and we will get reports, next, and then next. We will repeat the same process. Okay, so we'll make the same process again. Okay, and we'll make it, but here after giving this user the login as batch option, and give the IIS user the impersonate as a client. Okay, so these are two important options, you need to configure it. Okay, so after that, if we tell him add, it will successfully, as I said before, you can see here that before that it gives here timeout, but after adding the login as batch option to this user, it passes real quickly. And then you can export what you have done as a PowerShell script. You can do this. Okay, and after that we will see that the reports are created. Okay, so our upcoming video, this is part 1 of MBAM setup, software setup. The upcoming video we will discuss how we can configure the web portal for both administration portal and help desk portal for the MBAM. So we have finished the database part, the reports part. We need to configure the web server part or the web portal part. Okay, so we can see here that at the end this has finished. So I hope this video was informative for you all, and I would like to thank you all for viewing. Thank you so much.